Good morning, students. Today's topic of discussion is acute rhinosinusitis. Earlier, the term rhinitis and sinusitis was used to describe inflammation of the mucosa of nose and paranasal sinuses separately. However, it is found that there is close association of these mucosa and hence the term rhinosinusitis is suggested by Task Force of Rhinology and PNS Committee in 1997. Its common causes includes viral, bacterial and allergic. Rhinosinusitis in children is a multifactorial disease and the importance of the predisposing factors changes with increasing age. Now come to classification. So on the basis of duration, rhinosinusitis is classified by Rhinosinusitis Task Force in 2007 as follows. Number 1, acute rhinosinusitis, where symptoms lasting for less than 4 weeks with complete resolution. Number 2 is subacute rhinosinusitis, where duration is 4 to 12 weeks. The third one is chronic sinusitis, where duration is more than 12 weeks. It may be with polyp or without polyp. The fourth is recurrent rhinosinusitis, where 4 or more episodes of rhinosinusitis per year, each lasting for 7 to 10 days or more, with complete resolution in between the episodes. Anatomically, it may be classified as maxillary, ethmoidal, frontal, sphenoidal, and multisinusitis, that is, involvement of more than one sinus. Commonly involved sinuses are maxillary and ethmoidal. It may be classified as unilateral, bilateral, and pansinusitis, that is, involvement of all the sinuses. It may also be classified as open if pus is coming out through its natural ostium, while it may be closed where pus is not coming out due to closure of natural ostium, which leads to cause more severe symptoms and can cause complications. Developmentally, at birth, only maxillary and ethmoidal sinuses are present and large enough, but growth of sinuses continues during childhood and early adult life. Radiologically, maxillary sinuses can be identified at 4 to 5 months, ethmoidal at 1 year, frontal at 6 years, and sphenoidal at the age of 4 years. It is lined by ciliated columnar epithelium with mucus secreting goblet cells. Cilia are more marked near the ostium. and helps in drainage of mucus into the nasal cavity. Now coming on acute viral rhinosinusitis. Acute viral rhinosinusitis causes common cold in a person. Approximately 20 to 30% of cases of acute rhinosinusitis are viral. The common viruses are rhinovirus and parainfluenza virus. Others are adenovirus, picornavirus, Coxsackie virus, and ecovirus. Respiratory syncytial and influenza virus are more destructive in nature and causing respiratory cilia damage and are more severe in nature. The infection is through airborne droplets and the incubation period is 1 to 4 days and illness lasts for 2 to 3 weeks. Now come to pathophysiology. Due to viral infection, there is release of cytokines and recruitment of eosinophils, neutrophils and T cells. Then mucosal edema and sinusoidal obstruction occurs that causes hypoxia of sinuses cavity with low pH, which leads to damage of cilia. Resolution of edema and recovery of cilia is the next step. Due to immunity of host, gradually mucosa becomes normal and will function. So look at the pathophysiology of acute viral rhinosinusitis. Here is the viral infection, that is common cold viruses. They release of cytokinins and recruitment of eosinophils, neutrophils and T cells here. Next step is to mucosal edema and sinusoidal obstruction. That lead to hypoxia of sinus cavity with lowering of the pH. That lead to damage of the cilia. Again, if the patient have good immunity, then the resolution process starts. So it is resolution of the edema and recovery of the cilia here, and that lead to a normal mucosa. So this cycle shows the pathophysiology of the acute viral rhinosinusitis. In acute viral rhinosinusitis, the symptoms begin with sore throat, which lasts for 1 to 2 days, followed by cough, nasal discharge, burning sensation at the back of the nose, nasal stuffiness, rhinorrhea and sneezing with low-grade fever, even with chills. Initially, nasal discharge is watery and profuse, but become mucopurulent due to secondary bacterial invasion. Now come to treatment. So there is no approved treatment. It is only symptomatic. In treatment of acute viral rhinosinusitis, we give antihistaminics. So diphenhydramine or chlorpheniramine maleate are effective, very effective, but due to more sedative property, the patient should not drive or operate heavy machinery. So nowadays the newer less sedative antihistamines like loratadine, cetirizine, levocetirizine, fexofenadine are more used, but it is less effective. Second is the topical decongestant. So if there is nasal blockage, in that condition we use xylometazoline or oxymetazoline nasal drop to spray for short period. It can use to get relief from nasal blockage. Agilastine nasal spray can be used as anti-allergic to relieve sneezing in bouts. Now third is analgesics. So there are certain analgesics we can use if the patient having pain and fever. Simply paracetamol, or if pain is more, then ibuprofen and other drugs can be used. Then supplementary treatment, vitamin C, vitamin B complexes and some lozenges are also given. Then the bed rest, plenty of fluids, steam inhalation and saline irrigation are the general measures which helps in improving the patient's condition. So the maximum cases of acute viral infection resolves within 2 to 3 weeks, but some may turn into acute bacterial sinusitis due to colonization of different bacteria causing sinusitis, pharyngitis, tonsillitis, bronchitis, pneumonia and even otitis media. Now come to acute bacterial rhinosinusitis. This usually follows viral upper respiratory tract infection. If it is not resolved, then it is colonized by different bacteria like Streptococcal pneumoniae, Moraxella catarrhalis, H. influenzae, Staphylococcus aureus, and even anaerobes. Now, what is the pathophysiology of this acute bacterial rhinosinusitis? So, it causes damage to cilia when the bacteria invades the nasal mucosa. It damages to cilia and epithelium, and mucosal edema leads to sinusoidal obstruction and stasis of secretions in sinuses from serous to mucopurulent with increased polymorphonuclear cells get infected by bacteria, causing acute bacterial rhinosinusitis. So after treatment, either it is recovered completely or turned into chronic rhinosinusitis. Sequence of pathophysiology from acute viral rhinosinusitis to acute bacterial rhinosinusitis is just you see in chart. There is viral rhinosinusitis that lead to damage to cilia and epithelium. In next step, there is mucosal edema that lead to sinus ostial obstruction and a stasis of secretions in sinuses. Then there are certain predisposing factors which block sinus ostia. Here, due to that, there is bacterial invasion and that lead to acute bacterial sinusitis. After treatment, the recovery is there or it may change into chronic rhinosinusitis. Now we will discuss about different sinuses infection separately. First is acute maxillary sinusitis. The causes are viral, diving and swimming in contaminated water, in dental infections, and trauma to sinus due to compound fracture, penetrating injuries, and gunshot wounds. So, in acute maxillary sinusitis, the patient may have symptoms like fever, malaise, headache, pain over upper jaw, gums and teeth, swelling and redness, swelling of eyelid and nasal discharge. On examination, there is increased temperature, tenderness over anterior wall of maxillary antrum. You can elicit it by pressing the maxillary antrum area. Then edema over cheek you can see, and puffy eyelids came to observe. On interior rhinoscopy or endoscopy, there is thick mucopus or pus in the middle meatus with congested and edematous meatus and turbinates that can be seen. On posterior rhinoscopy, pus can be seen in nasopharynx to oropharynx. Then transillumination test is done, in which affected sinus will be found open. For doing transillumination test, there is a lighted torch is kept in the mouth, and you will see the glow over the clear maxillary sinus area. If it is filled with fluid or some opaque material like polyp inside or haziness, there is opacity. You cannot elicit proper light, glow, and there is opacity. So, by this method we can test regarding the whether the sinus is clear or occupied with some fluid or some material inside the sinus. Then come to investigation. So X-ray PNS water view is very common, where all the sinuses you can see properly. Maxillary sinus is also elicited well here. So there is haziness, opacity or fluid level you can see in this affected sinus. The CT scan of PNS, especially coronal section, is nowadays preferred to assess the extent of affected sinus more clearly. Now come to treatment. Treatment of acute maxillary sinusitis. There are medical treatment and some surgical treatment also, but mostly medical treatment, where antimicrobial drugs are used. So amoxicillin is quite effective. When sensitive with penicillin grows, then doxycycline or microlax are given. Beta-lactamase producing strains of H. influenzae and Moraxella catarrhalis needs amoxiclavulinic acid combination, ciprofloxacin, Axitil or ceftinib. Fluoroquinolones are also preferred nowadays. In severe cases, injectable mode of administration is preferred. Second is for nasal blockage. You can use xylo or oxymetazoline 0.1% nasal drop for nasal mucosal decongestion. Third is steam inhalation. It may be plain steam inhalation or with tincture benzoin. Then analgesics. So simply paracetamol or another analgesics can also be used depending upon the severity. If pain is more, then injection of diclofenac even you can use. Then hot fermentation. Hot fermentation on the affected region also gives relief to the patient. Surgical treatment is not done usually. It is done only when medical therapy is not responding. Acute conditions having some threatened intraorbital or intracranial complications. So in that case, you have to drain the sinus. For that, enteral puncture and was in case of maxillary sinus empyema, and endoscopic sinus surgery can be done in these threatening cases. Then come to acute frontal sinusitis, where the causes may be viral with bacterial invasion. Entering contaminated water during swimming, fracture of frontal sinus and edema of middle meatus. Secondary to associated ipsilateral maxillary or ethmoidal sinus infections. Then clinical features are headache with periodicity. Starts with a beginning. In the morning it starts. After awakening, gradually increases till daytime and then relieves again in evening. So it is also called office headache because it occurs mainly during office hours. Then second is frontal tenderness. Third is edema of upper lid and upper eyelid and photophobia. Nasal discharge seen high up in anterior part of middle meatus. On examination, frontal tenderness and transillumination tests are positive. For frontal tenderness, you have to press the sinus in this area and you will find there is tenderness. Similarly, for transillumination test, just a lighted torch is kept over this medial and superior portion of the orbit, and you will see there is glow or opacity in the frontal region. Regarding investigation, similar X-ray, PNS, Waters view and CT scan is preferred nowadays. So regarding treatment, medical treatment is same as acute maxillary sinusitis, and surgical treatment is trephining operation. Frontal sinus is drained externally. In this picture, just you see the trephination of right frontal sinus, the location where the incision is given, and just it is depend to periosteal lesion. Here there is drilling is done here to assess the frontal region, and the pus is coming out from this hole. You put a calistic tube here for the proper drainage, which can be removed later on. Even if needs, through this calistic tube you can wash the sinuses. Now come to acute ethmoidal sinusitis. So it is associated with infection of other sinuses, more of involvement in infants and young children. So the clinical features are pain. It is localized over bridge of nose, medial and deep to eye, aggravated by movements of eyeball. Second is edema of the eyelids, then nasal discharge seen in middle or superior meatus, swelling of inferior turbinates can also be seen. Treatment of acute ethmoidal sinusitis. There is medical treatment which is as same as in acute maxillary sinusitis. Already we have discussed. Then visual deterioration and exophthalmos indicates pus in posterior orbit, which is drained surgically through external ethmoidectomy approach. Now come to acute sphenoidal sinusitis. This sinus is rarely involved, occurs only with posterior ethmoidal sinus infection or when pansinusitis occurs. The clinical features are headache, only localized to occiput or vertex. It may also be referred to mastoid region. Postnasal discharge can be seen in posterior rhinoscopy or sticks of pus in posterior wall of nasopharynx. The investigation is similar. The X-ray PNS and CT scan is needed to confirm diagnosis. Medical treatment is again same as in acute infections of other sinuses. Surgical treatment needs for drainage of pus intranasally or by external approach, sphenoidectomy. There are various complications of rhinosinusitis which we shall discuss later on in details.